You know, we talk a lot on this show about disruptors.
Hmm.
And usually that word, it makes you think of Silicon Valley, right? Guys in hoodies, lines of code that change how we hail a taxi or order a pizza. But today, I want to talk about a disruptor who did it with a silk tie.
Yeah.
A guy who looked at the American class system, which was, I mean, pretty rigidly defined in the mid-20th century, and said, I'm going to hack this.
It really is a hack, isn't it? It's a social hack.
Exactly. We are looking at a man who essentially invented an entire aesthetic. And I don't just mean a style of shirt, I mean the whole world.
All world.
A world of manicured lawns, roaring fireplaces, vintage convertibles, and this very specific, very golden version of the American dream. It's a world that feels old, you know, like it's been there since the Mayflower.
But the reality, and this is what we are here to unpack, is that it wasn't inherited. It was built. It was manufactured from scratch by one man in his lifetime. It's a masterclass in storytelling, branding, and pure, unadulterated business grit.
We are diving deep today into the life and the massive business empire of Ralph Lauren. And the timing is, well, it's perfect. As we look at the landscape here in May 2025, Ralph Lauren is 86 years old.
86.
He is sitting on a net worth estimated at 11.9 billion US dollars. And just a few months ago, in January 2025, he became the first fashion designer to ever receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Which, just to pause there, is a massive deal. That is the nation's highest civilian honor.
Right.
When you look at the list of recipients, it is usually statesmen, scientists, civil rights activists.
Yeah.
For a fashion designer to break into that tier, it says something profound about his impact. He didn't just dress America. He helped define how America sees itself. He sort of curated the national image.
And that is the hook for me. Because if you look at the glossy ads, you see this image of old money, of aristocracy. But the man behind it, he started out working from a single drawer in the Empire State Building.
Not an office.
Not an office, a drawer, and he was delivering the goods himself.
It is the ultimate contrast. And that is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to unpack the business of this dream. We aren't just looking at the polo shirts or the color palettes. We are looking at how a kid from the Bronx built a lifestyle empire, how he revolutionized retail architecture, how he amassed one of the most valuable car collections on the planet, literally worth hundreds of millions, and how he stepped in to save the actual Star-Spangled Banner.
I love that story about the flag. It feels like the perfect metaphor for his life. But we have to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because before he was Ralph Lauren, the global icon, he was a kid named Ralph Lifshitz.
That's right. Born October 14, 1939, the Bronx, New York. His parents, Frida and Frank, were Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants from Pinsk, Belarus.
And just to set the scene, because context is everything here.
Right.
This wasn't the country club life he would later depict in his ads.
Not at all.
This was the Bronx in the 40s and 50s. His dad wasn't playing polo. He was an artist and a house painter. Ralph was the youngest of 4 siblings. It was a very grounded immigrant upbringing.
And that immigrant experience is crucial. If you don't understand that, you don't understand the brand. You have this intense desire to assimilate, to become American, whatever that meant at the time.
Right.
For that generation of Jewish immigrants in New York, there was a palpable pressure to fit in, to smooth out the edges of the old country. And for Ralph, that desire manifested in a very specific and frankly a very painful way around the age of 16.
The name change. Now, this is often the first thing people bring up about him. Sometimes cynically they say, oh, he changed his name to sound fancy.
Yeah, that's the common take.
But the source material paints a much, much darker picture.
It does. Look, we have to be real about this. His last name was Lifshitz.
Right.
He's a teenager in an American high school in the 1950s. The name contains a literal obscenity in English. He wasn't changing his name because he had a grand vision of a fashion label yet. He was changing it because he was getting hammered.
Bullying.
Relentless bullying. The notes are explicit about this. And he wasn't even the first in his family to make the change.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, his older brother, Jerry, had already changed his surname to Lauren. Why? Because he had been bullied while serving in the U.S. Air Force.
Wow.
Think about that. You are serving your country, wearing the uniform, and you are still a target because of your name.
So when Ralph and his brother George decided to change their name from Lifshitz to Lauren at age 16, it wasn't an aesthetic choice. It was a survival tactic.
Exactly. It was a protective measure. But here is the fascinating psychological pivot. By changing his name, he essentially learned the first lesson of branding.
What's that?
The label on the package changes how people treat the contents. Whether that package is a boy from the Bronx or a necktie, the name dictates the value perception. He rebranded himself before he ever branded a product.
That is a brilliant insight. He realized he could edit his own story. And he wasn't alone in that environment, was he, in the Bronx at that time?
Not at all. He attended the Manhattan Talmudical Academy and then DeWitt Clinton High School, graduating in 1957. And if you look at his cohort, it's actually staggering. He was part of this incredible generation of design leaders raised in the Jewish community in the Bronx.
Like who?
You had Calvin Klein, you had Robert Denning.
What was in the water in the Bronx back then?
It's the outsider's perspective. That's
Yeah.
what I think it is. When you are on the outside looking in at the good life,
Yeah.
at the WASPy culture, the Ivy League world, you observe it more continually than the people actually living it.
You study it.
You study it. You deconstruct it.
Right.
Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, they were analyzing American style with a forensic eye because they wanted to be part of it.
So he graduates high school, goes to Baruch College to study business.
Briefly.
Right, very briefly. He drops out after 2 years. And then he joins the Army.
From 1962 to 1964. And I think this period is often overlooked in the biographies, but for a young man in that era, military service was another layer of that Americanization process. It puts you in a uniform. It creates a sense of belonging to the national identity. It's the ultimate equalizer.
So he comes out of the Army, and this is where the hustle really begins. And I want to spend some time here because people think Ralph Lauren and they think instant success. But he didn't jump straight into designing couture.
No.
He went into the trenches of sales.
And this is the best training ground for any entrepreneur. He worked as a sales assistant at Brooks Brothers. Then he became a salesman for a necktie company called Rivets.
Okay.
This is critical. He learned the floor. He learned what people buy. He learned the tactile reality of the business. He wasn't in a design studio sketching fantasy dresses. He was seeing what guys were actually willing to pull their wallets out for.
But he wasn't satisfied just selling other people's stuff. And he certainly wasn't satisfied with the style of the time.
No. And here's the spark. He is 28 years old. He is working for a tie manufacturer called Beau Brummel. Now, in 1967, what did a tie look like?
Skinny, right. Very narrow.
Skinny. It was dark. It was conservative. It was, frankly, boring. It was the Mad Men era uniform, but the tail end of it where it had lost its soul.
And Ralph wanted to do something different.
Radical, actually. He wanted to make ties wide. He wanted opulent fabrics. He wanted them to look like something an English duke would wear on a hunting trip.
Right.
He convinces the company president at Beau Brummel to let him start his own line.
In 1967, the Ralph Lauren Corporation launches. And it starts with just ties.
Ties.
But this leads us to that famous drawer story I mentioned in the intro. And I want you to paint the picture for us because this is the definition of starting lean.
It's a great image. 1968, he launches his first full menswear line, which he names Polo. But he doesn't have a glitzy headquarters. He doesn't have a receptionist. He is working out of a single drawer in his showroom in the Empire State Building.
Single drawer. I mean, imagine that. You are in one of the most famous buildings in the world, a symbol of American power, but your entire business footprint fits in a piece of furniture.
And he wasn't sitting back waiting for orders. The source material notes that he made deliveries to stores himself.
Wow.
That is the grit behind the glamour. He is hauling doxes of ties and shirts through the streets of New York, probably sweating through his suit, dealing with loading docks and inventory managers.
And there's a story about Bloomingdale's here that I think defines his business character. The source material touches on his breakthrough there, but the context is that he initially faced rejection, right?
He did. And this is the business of the American dream lesson right here. When he first pitched his wide ties to Bloomingdale's, they said yes.
Okay, so they liked them.
They liked them, but with a condition. They said, we'll take them, but you have to make them narrower and you have to take your name off the label. We want to put the Bloomingdale's house brand on them.
That's a standard retailer move. We own the customer, you're just the manufacturer.
Exactly. And most young entrepreneurs, desperate for cash, working out of a drawer, would have said, yes, absolutely, where do I sign?
Of course. It's Bloomingdale.
It's the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
But Ralph,
What'd he do?
he walked away. He said no. He closed the sample case and walked out of the biggest account in the city. He refused to compromise the product integrity or his brand identity. 6 months later, Bloomingdale's came back to him and said, okay, fine, we'll do it your way.
That takes nerves of steel.
It really does.
And it paid off. By 1969, Bloomingdale's didn't just buy the ties, they gave him a shop-in-shop boutique. And I want to dig into that term, shop in shop, because it sounds like retail jargon, but it was actually a revolution.
It was a total paradigm shift. Before this, if you were a designer selling to a department store, your shirts went on the shirt rack next to 10 other brands. Your pants went on the pants rack. You were a commodity.
Right.
Ralph realized that his product wasn't just a shirt. It was a vibe. It was a context. If you put his wide, expensive tie next to a cheap, skinny tie, it looks out of place. But if you put it next to a mahogany shelf, a leather chair, and a picture of a cricket match, suddenly it makes sense.
So he demanded his own real estate inside the store.
He demanded control. He controlled the lighting, the fixtures, the wood paneling. He created a hermetically sealed environment within Bloomingdale's where, for 5 minutes, you weren't in a department store in New York. You were in Ralph's world.
Wow.
This shifted the power dynamic from the retailer to the designer forever.
And once he proved that worked, he took the next logical step. In 1971, he opens a store on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills.
Which was the first freestanding store for an American designer. Think about that. Before this, American designers were wholesalers. They sold to stores. They didn't have stores. Ralph Lauren changed the retail model. He said, no, I need my own temple.
And speaking of temples and symbols, we have to talk about the logo, the Polo player. It is arguably one of the most recognizable symbols in global commerce today.
Oh, for sure.
It's up there with the Nike swoosh or the golden arches.
It is. But here is the aha moment from our research. The first time that emblem appeared, it wasn't on a men's polo shirt.
Wait, really? I assumed it started on the chest of the men's mesh shirt.
No. It was 1971. He introduced a line of tailored shirts for women, menswear-inspired shirts for women. And that is where the polo player emblem made its debut, right there on the cuff of the women's shirt.
That is fascinating. So the symbol of masculine sport actually debuted in women's wear.
It did. And the famous mesh polo shirt, the one that is in everyone's closet, that came a year later in 1972, the signature cotton mesh polo shirt.
Okay.
And this is where his marketing genius really went into overdrive. He didn't just put out a shirt. He launched it with a campaign that had a tagline. Every team has its color. Polo has 17.
Every team has its color. That is so clever. It implies you are part of a team just by wearing it.
Exactly.
It implies belonging.
It's tribalism. I wasn't selling a garment. He was selling membership. It cemented the shirt as the emblem of the preppy look. It democratized the country club aesthetic. You didn't need a membership to the club. You just needed the $20 shirt.
And then Hollywood came calling, and this really supercharged the brand's visibility. It took it from fashion to culture.
The 1970s were the decade where Ralph Lauren became the costume designer for the American imagination. First, you have The Great Gatsby in 1974.
The Robert Redford movie, which makes total sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Andrew.
Ralph Lauren outfitted the male cast, and specifically, he designed a pink suit for Robert Redford's Jay Gatsby.
The pink suit, of course.
Now, let's pause and look at the meta-narrative here. Jay Gatsby is a character who reinvented himself, who changed his name, who built a luxurious world to cover up humble beginnings to win over the girl and the society.
It is almost autobiographical. Ralph Lauren is Jay Gatsby.
The parallels are impossible to ignore. A poor boy who changes his name and builds a castle. That's the story. And by dressing Redford in that movie, Lauren wasn't just doing a job. He was solidifying the visual language of his own brand. He was saying, this 1920s grandeur, this belongs to me now.
And then a totally different vibe, but equally influential, Annie Hall in 1977.
Yes, Diane Keaton and Woody Allen wearing Lauren's clothes. But specifically Diane Keaton. That look, the menswear-inspired women's wear, the ties, the vests, the baggy trousers, the fedora.
Iconic.
That became iconic. It influenced an entire generation of how women dressed. And it was all Ralph. He showed that women could look powerful and sexy in men's clothes.
So he conquers menswear, he conquers women's wear, he conquers Hollywood. What is left to conquer? The invisible. Smell.
Fragrance. And again, he breaks the mold here.
Yeah.
In 1978, he launches his fragrances. But he doesn't just do a women's perfume and wait to see if it sells.
What does he do?
He launches men's cologne and a women's perfume simultaneously.
Polo for men in the green bottle and Lauren for women in the red cube.
Correct. And the source material points out that this was the first time a designer had ever introduced two fragrances at once. It reinforced this idea that Ralph Lauren wasn't just a brand for him or for her. It was a world for us. It was a complete lifestyle. You could look like him, and now you could smell like him.
And that world just kept getting bigger and more physical. We talked about the Rodeo Drive store, but in the 80s, he really leveled up with the Rhinelander Mansion.
1986. Madison Avenue and 72nd Street. This wasn't just a store innovation. He bought this old, incredible mansion. And working with a young design consultant named Naomi Leff, he didn't modernize it. He went back in time.
Yeah.
He recreated the building's original opulence mahogany staircases, velvet drapes, oil paintings.
It is an incredible space. If you have ever walked in there, it doesn't feel like a retail store. It feels like you were trespassing in someone's private, very wealthy home.
And that was the point. He was awarded Retailer of the Year by the CFDA in 1986 specifically for this, for transforming the cinematic feel of his clothing into a physical environment. He understood that retail is theater.
It's pure theater.
When you buy a shirt there, you aren't just buying cotton, you are buying a souvenir from the play.
He also took this show on the road, international expansion.
Huge. 1981, he opens on New Bond Street in London, the first freestanding store for an American designer in the West End.
Right.
And think about the audacity of that. He is taking this American vision, which is heavily borrowed from the British gentry, and he is selling it back to the British.
That is a great point. He's selling the British look to the British, but with an American twist.
And it worked, because he sold them the fantasy version of themselves.
Yeah.
The version with better teeth and better lighting.
And then he moved into hospitality, because if you wear the clothes, you need a place to be seen in them.
Exactly.
RL Restaurant in Chicago opened in 1999, then Ralph's in Paris in 2010, and the Polo Bar in New York in 2015.
The Polo Bar is notoriously hard to get a reservation at, even today. And that's by design. It creates that exclusivity. It completes the circle. You dress in Ralph Lauren, you eat at Ralph Lauren, you live in Ralph Lauren.
And purely on a business level, the company grew into a behemoth.
It did. They went public on the New York Stock Exchange on June 12, 1997, and the brand diversification was relentless.
So what did it look like?
You had Polo Sport in 1992, tapping into the activewear market before it was cool. Purple Label in 1995, which was his answer to Italian luxury, the ultra-high-end stuff. Ralph Lauren in 1996 for the department store market.
And they were early to the internet too, right?
Surprisingly so, they launched Polo.com in 2000. Originally, it was a joint venture with NBC called RL Media, which is an interesting little historical footnote.
RL Media.
Yeah, he understood that media and commerce were merging. Later, in 2007, Ralph Lauren acquired the NBC share and relaunched it as RalphLauren.com.
And we can't skip the massive JCPenney deal. This one always fascinated me because it seems like a risk to the luxury image.
American Living, launched in 2008. This was a massive cross-category launch exclusively for JCPenney. And yes, it was a risk. This is the mass-stige strategy, mass prestige.
Right.
He showed that while he had the purple label for the elite, he never lost sight of the mass market. He wanted everyone to have a piece of the dream. He understood that you can sell a $5,000 suit and a $50 towel as long as the story connecting them remains consistent.
Fast forward to 2018, the 50th anniversary.
A spectacle.
Yeah.
Held at Bethesda Terrace in Central Park. The guest list was a who's who of American culture. Oprah Winfrey, Hillary Clinton, Kanye West, Robert De Niro. It was a coronation, really.
Wow.
It was the culture bowing down to the creator.
Okay, so we have established the empire. We see the stores, the ads, the billions. But let's look at the man living inside it. We know he came from humble beginnings, but what about his personal life? How does the man himself navigate this world he built?
Well, in an industry known for volatility and short-lived relationships, consistency is the key word here. He married Ricky Ann Lobeer on December 20th, 1964.
They have been married for over 60 years. That is rare in general, but in the fashion world, that is basically a statistical anomaly.
It is, and the meet-cute story is charmingly normal.
Yeah.
They met in a doctor's office.
That's doctor's office.
Yeah, she was working as a receptionist, and on alternate days, she was teaching dance.
And Ricky isn't just in the background. She is an author. She is his muse. The Ricky bag is one of their most famous products.
Absolutely. She
Yeah.
wrote The Hamptons, Food, Family, and History. They have 3 children, Andrew, David, and Dylan.
Dylan Lauren, the candy mogul.
That's right, Dylan's Candy Bar.
Yeah.
She took her father's retail genius and applied it to sugar. And David Lauren is heavily involved in the company, leading the innovation and marketing.
Right.
And there is a fascinating political connection there, too. In 2011, David married Lauren Bush.
The niece of President George W. Bush.
Yes, so pause on that for a second. You have the son of the Bronx immigrant fashion designer marrying the niece of a president and granddaughter of another president.
It's incredible.
It is the quintessential American merging of families. It's the final step of that assimilation journey we talked about at the beginning. The Lifshitz family and the Bush family are now one tree.
Now, despite all the success, it hasn't been entirely smooth sailing. In the late 80s, there was a significant health scare that I think shaped his perspective on legacy.
April 1987. Ralph Lauren underwent surgery to remove a brain tumor.
Wow, that stops you in your tracks.
It was benign, and he made a full recovery. But for a man building an empire, that has to be a moment of reckoning. When you face your own mortality, you stop thinking about next season's collection and start thinking about what you leave behind. It humanizes him. He isn't invincible.
And while the marriage has been long and stable, the source material does mention some controversy in the 90s. We should address that because it speaks to how the brand manages its image.
Yes, we have to be thorough. In the early 1990s, there were reports of an extramarital affair with a model named Kim Nye, who was actually featured in the Safari fragrance campaign.
And how did Lauren handle that?
Well, reports say he sought to remove these details from biographies. He wanted to protect the image, both his personal image and the brand's image. Because remember, the brand is family values.
Right.
The brand is the happy couple on the lawn. A scandal like that threatens the core narrative. But these things tend to come out, and it was documented in unauthorized biographies later on, like Genuine Authentic by Michael Gross.
It reminds us that behind the polished ad campaigns, these are real people with real complications.
Exactly. But let's talk about where he spends his time and his money, because his real estate portfolio is just as curated as his stores.
Oh, I have seen photos of the ranch. It looks like a John Wayne movie set.
The Double RL Ranch in Ridgeway, Colorado. 17,000 acres.
17,000.
It is a working cattle ranch, but it is also the physical embodiment of his Western aesthetic. He didn't just buy a house in the mountains, he bought the mountains. And then he has a 17,000 square foot manor in Bedford, New York.
But for me, and I know for a lot of our listeners who are into design and engineering, the real jaw dropper is the cars.
The car collection. This isn't just a rich guy buying Ferraris. This is a curated archive of industrial design. We are talking about 100 automobiles.
And these aren't just nice cars, these are museum pieces.
Quite literally. His collection has been displayed at Boston's Museum of Fine Arts and the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris. When a museum asks to borrow your garage contents, you know you're on another level.
Let's list a few of the crown jewels mentioned in the source, because the names alone sound expensive. I want you to describe them for us.
Okay, buckle up. First, the 1938 Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic.
That is the black one with the riveted spine running down the middle, right? It looks like something Batman would drive if Batman lived in 1938 Paris.
That is the one. It won Best of Show at Pebble Beach in 1990. There are only a couple of them in the world. It is considered one of the most valuable cars in existence. Estimates often float around $40 million or more.
$40 million for one car.
It's Art Deco speed.
What else?
A 1930 Mercedes-Benz SSK Count Trossi, also a Pebble Beach winner. This car is a beast. It's black, sinister, incredibly long hood. It looks like a villain's car in the best way possible.
Right.
Then in 1962, Ferrari 250 GTO, the holy grail of Ferraris.
And he has modern stuff, too.
Oh, yes. 3 1996 McLaren F1s, and note that he has 3.
3 of them.
The McLaren F1 was the fastest car in the world for a long time. He has an ultra-rare LM model and a Lamborghini Rivington Roadster.
And in 2017, he actually used the cars as the backdrop for a fashion show, right?
He did. New York Fashion Week.
What?
He held the show in his garage in Bedford. And the context here is wild. The collection surrounding the runway was valued at $600 million.
$600 million just sitting in the garage while models walk by.
But again, look at it through the lens of the brand. These cars represent speed, style, beauty, engineering. They are the ultimate accessories to the lifestyle he sells. He is saying, my clothes belong next to this Bugatti. It elevates the clothing by association.
Now, we have talked about what he has accumulated. Let's talk about what he is giving back. Because his philanthropy is significant, particularly in one specific area.
Cancer research. This is a major pillar of his legacy, and it started with a personal connection. In 1989, he co-founded the Nina Hyde Center for Breast Cancer Research at Georgetown.
Okay.
Nina Hyde was a fashion correspondent and a close friend of his. When she got sick, he didn't just send flowers. He started a center.
And that led to the Pink Pony campaign.
Right. Launched in 2000. You've probably seen the shirts. The polo player is pink. The Pink Pony campaign is about reducing disparities in cancer care. It focuses on awareness, prevention, and treatment, especially in underserved communities.
He also did a lot of work right in New York City.
In Harlem. In 2003, he established the Ralph Lauren Center for Cancer Care and Prevention. It was a collaboration with Memorial Sloan Kettering and North General Hospital. This was about bringing world-class care to a neighborhood that was historically underserved.
And internationally, too.
Yes, he partnered with the Royal Marsden in Europe to fund a breast cancer research facility. And the source mentions this was inspired by his friendship with Princess Diana.
I didn't know they were friends.
They were. She presented him with the Nina Hyde Center's first humanitarian award in 1996. So there was a genuine connection there. It fits the brand perfectly, royalty and philanthropy.
Now, earlier you teased the story about the Star-Spangled Banner. This is one of my favorite facts about him because it circles back to that patriotism we talked about.
It is a great story of patriotism meeting preservation. In 1998, Ralph Lauren contributed $10 million to the Save America's Treasures campaign.
And what was that money for?
It was specifically to preserve the original 1813 flag, the actual physical tattered flag that flew over Fort McHenry and inspired Francis Scott Key to write the national anthem.
That is incredible. The literal Star-Spangled Banner.
It was deteriorating. It was falling apart. It needed massive, expensive conservation work to save it for future generations. And Ralph Lauren stepped up to fit the bill.
There is something so poetic about that. The son of immigrants who changed his name to sound American ends up being the one to save the most potent symbol of America.
It's the ultimate thank you to the country that allowed him to invent himself. He's preserving the symbol of the dream.
He also helped out the French, right?
He did. In 2013, he committed to restoring the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. So he is preserving culture on both sides of the Atlantic. He sees himself as a custodian of Western civilization's aesthetics.
And the world has certainly recognized him for all of this. The list of awards in the source material is exhausting.
It is a mile long. Cody Awards in the 70s, the CFDA Lifetime Achievement Award in 1992, presented by Audrey Hepburn, no less.
That is some serious star power. Audrey Hepburn is the ultimate seal of approval for elegance.
He was made an Honorary Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire, a KBE, in 2017. Prince Charles presented that to him.
So he's Sir Ralph.
So he is technically an Honorary Knight. Honorary Sir Ralph.
Honorary Sir Ralph. I like it.
And then, as we mentioned at the very top, the pinnacle, January 4th, 2025, the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Joe Biden.
The first fashion designer to ever receive it.
It really cements his place in history, not just fashion history, but American history. It acknowledges that what he built wasn't just a clothing company. It was a contribution to the national identity.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We have gone from the Bronx to Buckingham Palace, from a drawer in the Empire State Building to the White House.
It is an extraordinary journey, and it is worth noting that while he is still very much the face and soul of the brand, he has transitioned his role. He stepped down as CEO in 2015, handing the reins to Stefan Larsson initially, though that was a rocky transition. But he remains the executive chairman and chief creative officer.
He's the guardian.
He is still the guardian of the dream.
So what does this all mean? When we look at the legacy of Ralph Lauren, what is the big takeaway?
You know, it brings me back to that idea of self-invention. Ralph Lauren didn't just sell clothes. He sold a dream of American aristocracy to the world. And the irony, or perhaps the beauty, is that he started with nothing. He wasn't born into the polo playing class.
He created the class.
In a way, yes. In a world where fashion trends change weekly, where things are in one day and out the next, how did a brand built on 1920s nostalgia and English gentry aesthetics manage to stay relevant for over 50 years?
That is the question.
Perhaps the most American thing about Ralph Lauren isn't the polo shirt or the flag sweaters or the denim. It is the self-invention of the man himself. He looked in the mirror, didn't see Ralph Lifshitz, and decided to become someone else. And he did it so convincingly with such commitment to detail and quality that the whole world believed him. And eventually, the world didn't just believe him, they gave him a knighthood and the Medal of Freedom for it.
That is a powerful thought to leave us with. The ultimate American invention was Ralph Lauren himself.
Indeed.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.